Batman Rogues Gallery used to be one of the best things about DC Comics and one of the best things about the Dark Knight himself. No offense to any of the great superhero rogues galleries out there like Superman, Spider-Man, the X-Men, or anyone else, but Batman's Rogues Gallery has traditionally been the crown jewel of all villains. One of the best things that DC Comics and the Dark Knight has going for himself, loaded with a myriad of different foes who challenge Batman intellectually, like the Riddler, chaos wise, like the Joker, physically, like Bane, vicious and brutal characters like Deadshot, Clayface, Mr. Freeze, Two Face. They all found great ways to challenge the Dark Knight. And they seemed to have been created specifically to challenge different aspects of Batman's personality. The Riddler always challenged him intellectually. Two-Face was a dark reflection of the split personality that Batman himself has as Bruce Wayne and Batman, but to a villainous degree. The Joker being the ultimate symbol of chaos against the dark, representing order. Even characters like Catwoman and Poison Ivy represented seductresses who could frequently tempt the Dark Knight from his path of justice. They were one of the best things about Batman comic books across the board. And as time grew on, more and more were added to this rogues gallery. The 70s saw a James Bond style villain with Ra's al Ghul, who added a completely different dynamic to the Dark Knight. And in the 90s, the animated series introduced characters like Harley Quinn, who caught on with fans and added different dynamics to it. Batman's rogues gallery is vast, it's loaded. There are tons of them. They are all pretty much great characters, which is why it's weird to say that now the Batman villains kind of suck. And it's not because the characters are bad. I think they're suffering from a myriad of problems. And I think for the most part, there's two huge ones that all of them are facing. So today, what I wanted to do is look at a couple specific villains that I think are really, really broken in the DC universe, in Batman's universe, talk about why they've become more problematic than great as far as the Dark Knight, and at the end, try to actually solve and present something that I think could make Batman comics a little bit more interesting. I say this as a lifelong Batman fan. He is my favorite fictional character of all time, and I love the Batman Rogues Gallery. But lately, they don't feel special anymore. They feel redundant. They feel repetitive. Plots that they're in are no longer invented. We haven't gotten great stories featuring the Batman Rogues Gallery in a long time. Stuff like Nightfall, The Killing Joke, great stories like that used to challenge Batman and give us classic stories about these villains. And now it just kind of seems a run of the mill thing every week. Now, I know a lot of people point to the history of comic books and talk about the fact that there's always been relatively easy issues where Batman knocks out the Joker and we move on to the next adventure. Well, that was more on the Silver Age of comics and the earlier ages of comics where that was the nature of comic books themselves. But since comic books have decided to take themselves more seriously with these villains doing more dastardly and evil things as stuff has gone on, it kind of ruins it when the villains themselves become repetitive or non-threatening. If we were back in the era where the most threatening thing the Joker was going to do was poison the water for Batman to stop, or make a couple Joker fish, that's different. But once we have the Joker doing all the crazy things like cutting his own face off, killing thousands of people, doing all kinds of awful stuff, I think we need to start actually putting together plots that are worthy of these characters if we're going to amplify their actions. So I want to look at a couple characters that I think to start that are the most broken in the DC universe. And that, in all honesty, starts with what I think is the greatest comic book villain of all time, the Joker. Now, the Joker, to me, I don't think there's much a question about it. You know, all due respect to Magneto, Doctor Doom, Lex Luthor, all the other great villains, he is the definitive comic book villain. I think when most people picture a comic book villain, he is probably what comes up for you. And that is because he is an absolutely fantastic character. He is the ultimate flip side of the coin. Batman is law and order and justice. The Joker is pure chaos and evil. But like all great characters, one of the things that's happened the most to Joker is he has become overexposed. And that's the first problem with the Joker. See, the thing about Joker is the Bowser to Mario for Batman, so to speak, right? That should be the end boss, the we're in the end game now moment when the Joker shows up. He should be the big bad. The Arkham City games and the Arkham Asylum game and all the great Arkham games understood this perfectly, with the Joker often being the final boss that you faced, what you were building to. But what they've done to him now, because of overexposure, he kind of just feels random. It's sort of like in the Mario game, instead of the cool music and in the castle, if you were just jumping on little Bowsers instead of Koopa Troopers the entire time. And that's what it kind of feels like recently. There's nothing special about the Joker anymore. He's thrown into every single event, given powers and abilities that make no sense for what he can do. The plots that he's in don't even specifically be designed or seem to be designed for him. Instead, they kind of just exist that he can do whatever the plot wants him to do because they want to put the Joker on the cover or in the event or anything like that. And that overexposure has made him feel unspecial. I think this has been especially a problem in the last couple of years because they keep using the Joker so much, they keep exploring these weird facets with the Joker that make no sense. And that's, in all honesty, giving him either a definitive origin or we're playing on this weird him and Batman having some sort of brotherly or the Joker having a romantic interest in whatever weird dynamics that they have. And it's so stupid and poor writing, in my opinion. Batman hates crime. He hates criminals. Now, he isn't going to kill them, and he believes in redemption. But there's no world in which the Batman would be friendly with Joker, or get along with Joker, or have a codependent relationship with Joker. To me, the fact that the character's become overexposed and people have tried to expound upon better works in the past by insisting that was a part of it makes no sense. One of the only things I'll give Zack Snyder is his relationship with Batman and the Joker was more the tone I'd like to see. Obviously, not with Batman saying he's going to kill, but that whole hatred that Bruce Wayne had towards the Joker and that feels more like he should be. Right? I also love to think it's in the Under the Red Hood where Batman describes all the ways in which he's seen the Joker and how he wishes something bad would happen to the Joker, but he'll never cross that line. The Joker should be the character that Batman hates the most. He won't kill him, and he does root for his rehabilitation, but Batman should not be on friendly terms with the Joker or have some sort of deep brotherly or codependent relationship with the Joker. And the more insistence that they've put on this, the dumber that gets. I think they need to get back to a place where the Joker and Batman absolutely hate each other, or at least Batman hates the Joker, with the Joker singularly being obsessed with trying to destroy Batman's peace and order. I think the second part that's happened to the Joker, and probably the biggest thing that I think has ruined a lot of the Batman Rogues Gallery, is Harley Quinn. Now, no question, Harley Quinn, as she debuted in the 90s cartoon, is fantastic. She was a great character, and initially her introduction into DC Comics, I think, was handled pretty well. But then, like most things, she became overexposed, and writers decided to keep peeling away layers and ruin everything about the character, in my opinion. The thing is, Harley and Joker's relationship was an iconic thing for a lot of people, but it was never supposed to be taken as a serious, literal, real good relationship in any way. It was a broken dynamic between broken people, with the Joker being the abusive, manipulative jerk that he's always been. You felt an inherent tragedy for Harley because of what happened, but it was never really supposed to be dug deeper than that. But of course, in modern comics, we can't do that. So Harley's had to become an independent-minded individual who's broken free and now regularly kicks the crap out of the Joker at every turn. But Harley herself doesn't really work as a character either in that way. And that one, it reduces the Joker, this character that should really only be able to be taken to by Batman, to somebody who can be beaten up by his former minion, which just kind of ruins the Joker. But also for Harley, it makes no sense because there's this huge push that she is her own character, she's free of the Joker, she is this feminist empowerment kind of message, and sure, that's fine, but then at the same time, she still does despicable things, and we're supposed to excuse those. So everything evil in the past is supposed to be the Joker's fault, but then what she does now was also the Joker's fault, even though we're emphasizing that she's an independent, empowered character. It makes no sense whatsoever, and it seems like they can't pick a lane with Harley. This has even gone so far as to having some comic books stupidly draw her in the Hall of Justice or just hanging out with the Bat family, despite the fact that she's an unrepentant murderer who is an absolutely crazy person. And yes, it's the world of comic books, things get excused, but it's a little bit ridiculous and stupid that Harley, who never showed any propensity for wanting to do good, just gets kind of brushed away with all of this. It's an insult to the Joker, it's a weird storyline for her, and it just doesn't work overall. I think there's some other characters as well that just seem to have lost that special zest that they used to have as well, with those two being the biggest. But I think some of the other characters have gone there. Scarecrow used to be terrifying. Now he kind of just shows up so often with nothing in particular to do anything. There was the Fear State event, but that landed with a thud and nothing special happened with the Scarecrow, and they really don't seem to be able to know what to do with him anymore. He used to be this cool psychological villain, but they've gotten Batman to the point that Scarecrow's gas doesn't affect him anymore. And once you have that, there's really nothing to do with the character anymore. Mr. Freeze is a great character, and again, probably one of my favorite Batman villains because of Batman the Animated Series. But once they unfroze Nora out of the ice and had her become her own villain and Freeze get kind of emasculated, it was just really weird. And Freeze at this point, they haven't really had much to do with the character, so it might just be better for him to kind of go away for a bit. I think this has been the problem with so many other characters. Characters like Two-Face, who used to be special, now kind of just show up as one-note villains to flip a coin and then get punched by Batman. There doesn't seem to be any challenge that these characters are exhibiting anymore, as it seems like even DC Comics, from the way they tell their stories, seem to think that the majority of the best Batman stories with these characters are in the past and not in the future. And so for me, with the Batman Rogues Gallery, if you're not going to use them properly and you don't have an actual path for them, then I think it would probably be best to take them off the board for a bit. I think overall, it's better for those characters to kind of just exist in the memories of fans as these great rogues who are kind of out there that could potentially come back and ruin Batman's day at any point. But right now, with where they are, I think they're so broken because it's repetitive, it's not special anymore. And very few of them challenge Batman anymore because we've elevated Batman so much that the gimmicks that used to work are kind of gone. Poison Ivy's another interesting character that this has happened with, where she used to be the ultimate seductress, the one where she could come in and really mix things up with Batman and have where Batman may not be able to fight back. But again, we built Batman's immunity to that to the level that that never really challenges anything anymore. And because Ivy's been tangled with Harley's empowerment comic book push that's been there, Ivy now kind of gets brush waved away as not really bad anymore because you can't have that relationship be bad either, which then just takes her off the board as well. So I think, in all honesty, what Batman should start doing is some of the rogues that they don't seem to know much to do with anymore should be taken off the board. Not permanently, but maybe just retired for a bit or pushed away. I think Scarecrow, Clayface, Mr. Freeze, and Poison Ivy are all characters who would absolutely be better if they were pushed out of Gotham for a bit and moved away and not in the comic book until there's something better to do with them. There are two characters I haven't mentioned that I do think are in a really good place. I think that's Catwoman and Bane. The Catwoman I barely classify as a Batman villain anymore, and I do think she kind of has a great storyline as it is. I would love to see her become more of an ally with Batman, but at this point she's become so redeemed as a character that she really, in my opinion, doesn't count as a villain for Batman anymore. Outside of that stupid Gotham War story that they did, I like seeing her in that partnership role with Batman where she still is kind of shady and challenges Batman for obvious reasons due to his attraction to her. But I think overall she's a good character. And I do think Bane, while not perfect, I think after they did the whole weird reviving him thing, I think Bane's a great character that still seems to show up in special events. While I don't like Tom King's run on Batman all that much, I do think the overall Bane storyline was handled pretty well up until the last couple of issues. And I do think Bane is a force out there as an interesting character who should always kind of be lurking in the background of when is he going to come back. So that's kind of the issues that I have with the Batman Rogues Gallery right now. How would I try to fix this if I was going to go in and look at what I would do? Well, I think the biggest changes that I would make, as I kind of mentioned, Clayface, Scarecrow, Freeze, Ivy, I'd retire them, move them out of Gotham, have them kind of just out there in the shadows, but not be a major factor in Batman comic books anymore. I think you could do the same with Ra's al Ghul. He's a great character, but I think Ra's al Ghul should be saved for special events, maybe a huge crossover or something that takes place where there's world stakes at play and Batman has to stop it. I think what I would do with the main rogues gallery, the biggest change that I would make is I would adapt two huge changes. One, I would adapt Two Face being completely redeemed as he was at the end of Hush. I think what this would do is because of the loss of Alfred in the Batman comic books, having Harvey Dent come back as like a district attorney or positive figure would help. Now, they could chalk a lot of that up to his mental illness, forgive him for being Two Face. I mean, it's a world where Vandal Savage was able to become a commissioner. But I think it would be interesting, especially with the loss of Alfred in the comic books, to have Batman have an ally again, albeit one that he could constantly be questioning, with us always wondering, is he going to turn into Two Face again? I think that dynamic would really work. I think it would remove Two Face from being a villain that's kind of become boring and put him on the board in an interesting way in which he would be a real asset to the Batman comic books again, with readers always sort of wondering when or not he's going to go back to being Two Face. The huge major change I would make, however, is I would kill off the Joker. I would adapt Arkham City's storyline and I would have the Joker be killed off. Now, obviously, it's comic books. He'll come back at some point. But in my opinion, if I was running Batman, at least for a decade, I would have the Joker dead. And I would have another character kill off the Joker and have that be a major part of Batman's world for a bit, with him trying to figure out who killed the Joker. The Joker at this point has kind of been ruined. And I think at this point he needs a break from poor cinematic adaptations to weird cartoon interpretations of the character to just overexposure and poor storylines. I think the best thing you could do for the Joker is take him off the board for a bit. And I think factoring a death of his, like Arkham City had, to where it completely changes the Batman universe, would be a good thing. I think it would free up room for some of the other villains to have better events, and it would give us a truly monumental moment in Batman comics, especially if the character stayed dead for a while. I would initially have the Joker killed, with Batman investing who could have done it, from anyone from the Red Hood to Ghostmaker to whoever else could be seen as the person who killed the Joker. But I think taking him off the board would be really interesting for a while. And I think it would change the dynamics to help Batman in a couple of ways. Because one of the things I think the Rogues Gallery needs to do again is they need to challenge Batman in a major way. To be honest, some of the reasons I think Batman comics have gotten a little bit boring is that Batman seems to have too much control over Gotham City now. While the city's always out of control, the villains seem to have lost a little bit of the hold. And I think that's where stuff like Arkham City, Arkham Asylum, The Batman, and other movies like that have felt interesting, is it always felt like Batman was an underdog fighting against this massively corrupt system that existed. And I think with a couple of rogues that exist currently who have been a little bit undercooked recently, you could really draw up something special for Batman, putting it to where he is at odds with almost every piece of Gotham City and truly having to occupy a space to himself. So if I was to design this, here is what I would try to do to give Batman a different feel over the next decade or so. I would set up that Gotham City has been divided into a couple different territories, with Black Mask and Penguin basically controlling one half of Gotham each. Now, while both of these characters have presented challenges for Batman before, I would fully set them up as corrupt crime lords who control massive amounts of territory, with frequent gang breakout and violence between the two and a territorial war between them, similar to what was in Arkham City. To make sure that Batman is kept at bay, though, and constantly challenged by them, I would have that both Black Mask and Penguin hire assassins from the DC universe who play a large role in keeping Batman at bay. Thinking characters like Lady Shiva, Prometheus, Cheshire, Deadshot, Deathstroke, Richard Dragon, or maybe characters who can face a physical challenge for Batman that would cause him problems at all turns and make it so where the territory of Gotham is constantly being fought over, but Batman has to physically fight imposing opponents to make any ground whatsoever against them. The other underdog kind of wild card characters that I would throw in here. So I would bring Hugo Strange back and legitimize him as the legit controller of Arkham Asylum and all of the institutions in Gotham, very similar to the role that he had in Arkham City. I think the way that this would work is you would turn one of the institutions that Batman relies upon completely against him. When you pair that with one of the only good changes I think that's been made in comics recently, making Vandal Savage the commissioner of the police department, you would then have that law enforcement and all the other institutions are also against Batman. So not only is the city divided by two villains fighting over territory constantly with powered enforcers at every turn that pose physical challenges for Batman, now the law enforcement and institutions like Arkham Asylum are completely controlled by Batman villains as well, leaving it to where he has very little alternatives where to go. I think the other two characters that I would throw in as a wild card just to put more challenges in for Batman would be I would have the Riddler, Edward Nygma, go completely legit in the comic, at least as far as how the city sees him, with him becoming a businessman or an influential person. Put a mental condition on it or something that happened where he's freed, but I could see the Riddler becoming a powerful businessman controlling a lot of the corporate interests in Gotham, challenging Bruce Wayne on the Wayne Enterprises industry. I think this would be interesting and would fit the Riddler because with him knowing Batman's identity, he could be doing this just to frustrate and infuriate and cause problems for Batman. I would legitimately have at times where it seems like the Riddler is doing good things and that constantly being in the mind of Batman of wondering what Enigma is actually trying to do, while also adding a challenge to him as Bruce Wayne, where he has to deal with the corporate side of things as well. The last wild card that I would throw in to make it a bit more interesting to challenge Batman is I would have a mysterious vigilante show up who is killing criminals as well. Now, for me, this would be the character Wrath, who I think is one of the most unexplored Batman villains. And yes, it's kind of a flip opposite side of the coin, basically grew up the same as Batman, but a criminal. But I think it would be really interesting to set him loose. I think you could have him show up, start taking out criminals on the streets permanently, and have where Gotham, because the city is so corrupt, even starts to get on his side. We never knew the identity of the original Wrath in the comic books, really, and I would go back to that character with it being another unexplored vigilante type person for Batman to explore. Obviously, this one would be a little bit more unpredictable, killing criminals, killing good people, killing cops, killing whoever, but having Gotham kind of wonder and go against Batman again with another shadowy vigilante who's violent out there doing things. Ultimately, you could even have Wrath be the character who killed the Joker, setting in further drama for Batman. But I think it would be really interesting to set that up where Batman is being challenged at every front and having almost every institution in power of Gotham be challenged by one of his former villains. And I think if you added Harvey Dent as a redeemed district attorney in there teaming up with Batman, along with Gordon, who's just a detective and in a much lower role, who could work together fighting against the underdog kind of role in Gotham City where all the institutions seem to be against them. Even maybe throw Catwoman in as one of Batman's greatest allies. And I think you'd actually start to have something where Batman again would be challenged both on a physical standpoint, a financial standpoint from Riddler, an institutional standpoint from Vandal Savage, and Hugo Strange, and having where every night in Gotham, Batman feels like he is one man trying to stop a giant wave every night. I think that would add some spice to Batman's comics again and make it where Batman would truly have imposing rogues again. But just one man's opinion. I would be interested to see what do you guys think below. What would you do with the Batman Rogues Gallery? Do you like the idea, hate the idea, whether you think it's the dumbest thing you've ever heard or something you support? I always appreciate hearing your guys' feedback down below. Thank you as always for watching, folks. God bless you. We'll catch you in our next video.